and then have to deal with them. It's not, it doesn't always, I move in and out of how much of that I allow, but it is almost invariably to some degree involved. The process has certain chance elements in them, which I always keep. I mean, the chairs have to be pretty controlled, but there are still things that, get worked out as I go. Because, of course, the leather is never the same. And you can see with this one, the grain runs this way. Now, one of the chairs you'll see, which is a rocking chair, the grain runs the other way. And it behaves quite differently. And that's interesting, and you have to adjust for it. In fact, a year after I finished the chair, I had to put it back on the block and try and heat it up and modify the shape of the back a little bit because it had moved too much. And it had become slightly asymmetric. Which was not my intention, and so I wanted to see if I could actually correct that, which I did to a certain degree. It's still slightly asymmetric, but you probably won't notice it unless you spend a very great deal of time looking very precisely at it from very specific angles. Okay, now this should be screwed in place. So that it doesn't move. But since the only thing I seem to have forgotten today is my screws, we'll manage without it. So I'm going to get, I'll probably get some help here in a minute, but first we have to heat up again, wet down the heat. And I'll get Paul to come back here and help me again with these plants. Okay. Unless somebody's got a couple of, 1.25-inch screws in their pocket. Anyway, let's see, what are we going to do here? I hate it when I forget things, but I've gotten used to it.
It happens all the time.
Invariably do.
It happens all the time.
Okay. Now the trick here will be, we have two things loose rather than one. So the balancing will be a little...
4 or 3?
I have 4, but 3 may be enough. I think 3, we're probably better off at 3. Okay, now let's get this heated. Down here. Okay. Let's get you off here. Okay. Yeah, it's probably a little hefty for creme brulee. So you'd like these small torches for that. Okay, now. Okay, Now, I'll try. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, okay. I think we can, yeah, we can get away with doing it here. Okay, press on that, like that. And here. Get around behind it. Okay, let's see what we can do here. So a bit in the center or not? Looks okay. Yeah.
Why did you heat the first one?
Well,
So that it would reform too?
yeah. So now, if you see that other
Yeah, they're
bowl,
kind of straight over
that
there.
little cup in the bottom, that is this pressing down on the.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So we're changing the form of it again. So that's the heating.
You have a interesting.
I imagine you have to be fairly careful at this point because you could overstretch.
Yeah, and the other thing that sometimes happens is you put too much pressure on it and it abrades the leather where the contact is. If it's a little too if you put too much pressure on it. But if you don't put enough pressure on it, then the cut that you get at the bottom doesn't show up as well as it might. Normally I have a place that I hang that so that I don't have to turn it on and off all the time.
Now, when you're doing that, you have to make sure everything is horizontal, do you, or at this
Yeah,
point?
yeah. Usually I do that. Sometimes what I'll do is put it askew, but usually I'll change that. That might be, no. I would probably do it with this part rather than this part. So when we do this, I'll get the tape measure out again and we'll see what we're at. Okay, let's see how we're doing. This is 5 and 8.
That's when you can start building your jigs.
Yeah, the other thing is that, I mean, because I have a full wood shop, I make quite elaborate jigs. But, I mean, you could do this, and the way I started is I just took 2 pieces of plywood and clamped it. And, so you can use quite simple jigs. And they work just fine. And while these things, have a certain simplicity, They are fairly complicated to do, but that, you know, that's sort of my eccentricity. Okay. Now, the other thing is I do have a certain control over the length of the legs, so I can balance it that way. And sometimes I cut them off so they're wonky. Okay, let's, whoa. I think that's moved up. At a certain point too, some of the plywood will start to bend so that I don't, if I measure it, I may not go in. Okay. And that in all its glory is this part of the process. Now, it will stay in here in this for 3 or 4 days, maybe longer, because of course it takes a long time to dry the areas that are in contact with the wood. There's the stuff that's not dries very quickly, but between here it will not. It'll take a while, and same here. And when that's done, I'll take the clamps off. And then I knock this piece off, and then I reglue it. Because while most of the time it will kind of hold, at some point somebody will whack it and fall off, so I glue it. And then once that's done, it's trimmed using, well, mainly an angle grinder, but it's also those cylindrical sanding drums on the end of a drill or on a drill press, particularly for these kinds of areas here, because the angle grinder is not that precise. It's really good for the perimeters, but for the interior curve, not so good. And then when that's trimmed, then it's colored, and the colors on the inside stays, oh, thank you. The inside stays natural, whatever color comes out of the tank.
So does it feel like Christmas when you take that all apart and get the end result?
Sometimes.
Anticipation.
Well, yeah, there's a certain anticipation. I mean, with this one, because I've never used this before, I just made this one, I'm quite curious to see how well the ribs get marked into the thing, and if they're sufficiently in the right place that, you know, it gives me the kind of thing you have with that one. You can see how the ribs work in that. And basically, it's pretty much the same system. The cut for this is done with a 3/8 router bit, rounded router bit, and well, this one, you know, I routed the piece, the rounded piece here, routed the angle, so it's complicated to do that. For this one, I just scored the pieces and inset an 1/8" piece of ash. But the registry there may be a little off. When I do the work with the jigs, the circular jig to cut that kind of thing, it's a little more precise. Whereas this a little off in register, you might end up with not being quite in the right place. Plus, I made 2 mistakes while I was making it. So I was going to make this inset piece here slightly wider, and then I realized, no, I didn't want to do that. And I'd already had 2 cuts, so I had to cut them down. And I hope that it didn't affect the register.
Do you ever use any other materials like metal or for embellishments on the mold before you use it?
No, I haven't, but I did a sort of a participatory thing at, do any of you know about Emma Lake in Saskatchewan? It's sort of, they do, it's not quite a workshop. They have, it's up in the bush, and they have full metal shop, full wood shop, and various things, and they invite people to come and work collaboratively. And there was an Australian fellow who was there when I was there, and he we were doing something like this, and he took some wire and wove it into the thing, into the pressure jig, and that was beautiful. So, yeah, I mean, you could do that. You could, I mean, you will see in some of these other ones, the cutting in those plates is more elaborate, so that there's more, you get texture as well as just this reinforcing rib. I don't like it as well, but I tried it. And somebody who's more interested in what you can do with surface and so on would find working with that more interesting. So yeah.
Your salad bowls that you have in here.
Yeah.
Do you put some kind of a coating over top?
It's tongue on walnut on the inside, and then on the outside there is a what is it? It's a, I don't know, it's a Phoebing's acrylic finish, sort of a buffing waxy. It's acrylic base, I think. But for the inside, it's just either tongue oil or walnut oil or a combination.
So you don't put any dyes on the inside. That's
No.
the way it comes out of the mold.
That's the way it comes out of the mold. And this is all acrylic. I don't use any dye. Gave up on it years ago. Yeah.
Oh, going back to this, I saw you clamp it up and everything, but I'm curious, how far did you indent that top one onto the lower part, the bowl bottom?
This one here, on
Yeah.
here, till it kind of seats. I think with this one, I've been a little conservative. I probably could go a little farther, but this one also, I don't want to make that too flat by pushing it down too much. I just, let's see. I think you can see on this one. And yeah, this one it registers a little out from this inner piece. So the discoloring from the pressure of the block is not
Right there.
absolutely precise. But what is precise is that there's a line here where the laminated joint in the block is.
So when you go to put this together with that bolt,
Yeah,
you're actually putting it right, you're pressing it right now to the point where you would want it to sit when the bolt
Yes.
is finished.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
That's what I was.
Or at least I hope that's what I've done. You're never entirely sure.
Yeah.
But from what you tell us, that if it doesn't come out, you'll just heat it up and do it again until you get it where you want it.
With this, it's extremely difficult to do that.
Okay.
Because once you start to take this off and take the staples out and so on, and if you trim it, well, then you're done, because you can't re-clamp. And if you wet it and heat it under those circumstances, it will shrink back and be destroy itself, or make a slightly less interesting form, maybe, or maybe it would be more interesting, but it will not be very helpful as a bowl, because it will probably fall over. I mean, I have tried on a number of occasions to redo things like that, and while it didn't quite destroy the bowl, that cup shrank back away from the cap on top. Okay. Do you want to have a slight break, and we can set up the computer here, and I'll show you some images.